Hi, sir. Maybe. Raina, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
All right. Technology be smarter than us. Okay. Good. All right. So, like I was saying, in HR, it's really about laws, okay, regulations, legislation. And so, in order to better manage and protect the rights of employees, a set of legislation or set of rules were kind of created in order to protect the labor force, right, against prejudice, against racism, against bias, against nepotism, again, just basically being taken advantage of, right? Because you got to remember, prior to the Industrial Revolution, right, what happened in the late 20s, right? Most people were farmers. Okay, that's how people made their living. And so as they made their living being farmers, the rules that they adhered to were really rules relevant to their home, right? Whatever rules you had, at your house, that's the kind of rules that you abided by, except for the local laws and, that kind of thing. But for the most part, most people didn't really deal with the law in that sense. Whatever rules and laws they had in their home was kind of how they went, right? So however they treated their family, when it came down to the business of farming is what went, okay? And so also you gotta remember that because farming was the main thing, having a lot of children and having a big family was critical to, being successful in farming. And of course, having a good plot of land and the right weather conditions and all that other good stuff, right? But as we move into the industrialized world and people started working for other people in manufacturing, in production, and those other places, it became apparent that the people that were in charge and who actually had the decision-making ability were taking advantage of the workforce, okay? We're, employing big kids, 12, 9, 8-year-olds, okay? Where, women were subjected to sexual harassment, right? And sexual assaults. Men were just, subjected to just, pressure from having to perform, because if you didn't, or if I didn't like you, then I could get rid of you because there was a whole line of people waiting outside to get your job, okay? And so that created an unfair advantage. And so basically, I think 1866 is the first Civil Rights Act, okay, that was created. First piece of legislation that said, hey, as a person, as a human, this person has specific rights, and that this person should not be discriminated against because of maybe their gender or maybe their race, right? Very elementary stuff, pretty much things that kind of went with the times, right? So race wasn't necessarily in there per se, because at that point, although African Americans were free, they weren't free, right? Minorities, Native Americans, African Americans, if you weren't a white male, then come on in, right? If you weren't a white male, then you had no real rights and you were considered basically half or 1/10 of a person, right? And so you didn't count in the eyes of the law, you didn't count in the eyes of the Constitution, you didn't count at all as a person. So you couldn't own land, you couldn't vote, excuse me, you couldn't do a lot of things, right? And so in order to be fair in the workplace, okay, they basically said, hey, we have to create something to protect people from being taken advantage of, okay? And so we had the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which then manifested itself into the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title VII. And that was a lot more specific and was really the first major piece of legislation that went through a series of issues and challenges that we had in the United States specifically, right, about race, religion, sexual orientation, and those kind of things, right? Because you gotta remember that although America itself was considered the place where you could practice your religion freely and you could kind of, make your own way in life, there was still a lot of racism and prejudice and misunderstanding about different cultures, okay? And so if you weren't Christian or Protestant or Lutheran or some, some type of Christian religion, then in many instances you were ostracized and people didn't, respect you. And it was just the majority of folks that lived here were a certain race, and that's the way they thought about things, right? And so the EEO, right, which is basically equal employment opportunity, right, is basically the EOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, right? It's basically the government body, the federal government body that says, hey, we are going to be the legal enforcers of the law, okay, under the Department of Labor, okay? So under the Department of Labor, we have this legal aspect, legal branch of department that makes sure that companies adhere to the rights of the employee in the workforce based on Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title VII, okay? And so when you have that, right, you have what we call the protected classes, okay? That's protected characteristics, but the protected classes, all right? And so underneath the protected classes is race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, creed, and some other stuff. I don't remember off the top of my head, but all those particular areas are protected by law and should not be used as a factor in which to either fire you, hire you, or promote you, okay, in the workplace. It should not be used as a leverage point or a basis of criteria to say that you don't deserve or you shouldn't be treated fairly in the workplace, okay? All right, so every city has an EEO office, okay, Equal Employment Office, and they fall under the jurisdiction of the EEOC, which falls in the Department of Labor, which is a federal agency, right? And so, but here we have an EEO, office, and that EEO office handles all the grievances, all the complaints, all the issues that within the workplace for San Diego, okay, San Diego County, right? And so who that applies to, okay? So the EEOC only applies to companies, or the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Title VII only apply to companies that have 15 or more employees, okay? If you have a company and you have 14 employees, these laws don't necessarily apply to you in the sense that they will not be enforced in the same way, okay? They still need to be adhered to, but the mechanism in which you kind of get reprieve or get remedy is not the same, okay? So if you have 15 or more employees, then the government can come in and say, hey, you're not doing things right, or the government will come in and settle your disputes between you and your employee, okay? But if you have 15 or less, or 14 basically, or less, it's considered a private matter sort of, where it's so small that you probably know all 14 employees, right? And so you should be able to resolve whatever issues that you have amongst each other. If not, then you can go to litigation and that kind of thing, go to court and sue and do those things without having to go to EEOC in those kind of avenues, right? But for the most part, right, you got the federal statutes enacted by Congress, you got state and city government, okay? You got the courts, right? And within each kind of structure, right, within each level, right, the higher you go, of course, the more precedent you set, okay? At this level here, this the city, county level, they're going off precedents that was set by Congress, okay? Anything that happens, just as a point of reference, anything that happens in the Supreme Court as a decision by the judges is what we call precedent, okay? And so once the Supreme Court decides, like, we've had this case, and this is the outcome of the case, and it's kind of like the abortion rights, sort of, okay? Or Roe versus Wade, or Brown versus the Board of Education, okay? These are landmark cases that we had in the United States where there was a discussion about school and racism, right, and race, abortion rights, right, and being pro-abortion and being pro-life, I should say, and not having the ability to have an abortion or decide for yourself, right? those are decided at the highest levels, and so they became federal laws, right? And once they become federal laws, they basically trickle down to the state level, the city level, and get incorporated, and then they get enforced and followed, and so forth and so on. Okay, so at each level, you have different different leniency, right? As you go further down, the cities have leeways or the counties have leeway. They can administer punishments or rewards less than what the government's already established, but they can't do more than, right? So for instance, let's just say there's a sexual harassment case or something like that. And on the federal level, if you rape somebody, you get 10 years, okay? Or the sexual assault, you get 10 years, right? If you do something and you go to San Diego court here and you go to court and they find you guilty or whatever the case may be, they can't give you more than 10 years. They can give you 9, they can give you 8, they can give you 10, but they can't give you 11. Okay, so the punishment can be more severe than the most severe at the highest level. Okay, all right. So all these particular judicial entities play a role into making sure that people don't get screwed over in the workplace, right? And there's a number of acts that we are going to look at and discuss, right? There's the Disability Act. There's the Pregnancy Discrimination Act. There's GINA, which is the Genetic Information Act. There's Lilly Ledbetter Act. There's a lot of different acts and legislation that are pertinent to HR specifically, right? About working conditions, treatment, compensation, and that kind of thing, right? And again, the EOC, and we'll kind of go through the EOC process because the EOC plays a major role in making sure that things go right and that things are adjudicated, right? So we have a grievance, right? If you are having some problem at work, right? Where's the first place you're gonna go to if you have a problem at work? HR maybe, yeah. What's the first place you're gonna go?
Workforce.
Hmm?
Again.
If you have a problem at work, who's the first person you're gonna talk to? Manager.
That's mine.
Your boss, right?
Yeah, that's mine.
Okay. So what if your boss doesn't do anything? Who do you talk to then?
The higher level. The one of the same.
Or I believe HR.
HR,
Yes.
okay?
Uh-huh.
You talk to HR then, right? You never go to the next level,
Yeah.
right? You go talk to your boss and then it's HR. Okay, so when you get to HR, you file your grievance, okay? And HR will let the company know, let the boss, let the leadership know, hey, we got a problem, somebody's filed a grievance, and this happens all the time. So there's grievances going on all day, all right? So it's not a big deal. So they'll say if there's a grievance that's been filed, and say, okay, fine, let's look at it. They'll inform the CEO and everybody else as to what's going on. The first step that they're gonna do is try to resolve the problem in-house. Okay, they're gonna try to resolve the problem in-house. Okay, what's happening, what's going on? Depending on what it is, and the severity of the problem, if HR is, concerned, or HR is like, look, this is really a major problem, we don't wanna, mess with it, let's do an investigation. After doing an investigation, we'll see if there's any grounds to contact the EOC, right? So if there are grounds and they find something that's, tangible and can be substantiated, then they go to the EOC. The EOC automatically gets pulled in. Hey, a grievance has been filed, and then the EOC takes over. Okay, the EOC comes in, and basically it's probably 1 or 2 people that are case managers. They come in and say, okay, we're going to investigate this particular grievance, right? And so they go and they talk to everybody and they do their own investigation. And then whatever happens, whatever results they come out with, they report those to the company, right? So the thing about the EOC is that it's not the same as going to court. It's not the same as suing, right? The EOC cannot award you any money, right? They can't award you anything. What they can do is, if you were discriminated against because of your race or religion or your gender, and you didn't get a promotion, and that's your grievance, and they find out that this is true, their EOC will require the company to promote you and to give you all the requisite back pay that went with that promotion. Okay? They also may require whoever was guilty of that particular offense, they might tell them, hey, you got to get rid of that person, or send them to training and then see how they are in the next 6 months to a year, and the behavior and that kind of thing. Depending again on the comfort level of the person that put the grievance in, right? So if you have a sexual assault, let's say in the workplace, right? The first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna separate the two people, okay? Because you want to protect the person that has been victimized, you want to protect also the person that's been accused, because just because there's an accusation out there doesn't necessarily mean it's true, right? And you don't want this person to be ostracized or treated unfairly because people think he or she's a rapist or something like that, right? Right? So when they do investigation, whatever comes out, the EOC will then say, we recommend that, there's a substantiated case here, and we are going to mandate that you make this person whole, is what they determine, make the person whole. And so they give them the promotion, they give them all the pay that goes with that, and then the person will have the opportunity to decide what they want to do. They can stay with the company, they can leave, whatever the case may be with their money, or whatever the case may be, whatever they want to do. What's that?
So what does the company will be doing?
So if there's nothing there, the EOC will come back and say, look, we looked at the case, nothing substantiated, keep an eye on it, okay? And then we'll check back with you in maybe 90 days, 6 months, 180 days, just to see how everything is going, okay? So if there's nothing there, if they can't find anything, they'll basically close the case and the person will just have to kind of deal with it, right? The best thing, honestly, most problems, 9 times out of 10, can be solved at the very lowest levels, okay? It's just a conversation, really. And what usually happens is that the manager or the boss, the supervisor lets things get out of hand because they don't want to have confrontation, okay? There's one thing as a leader, as a supervisor, as someone who has people working underneath them, you have to get used to confrontation. You have to get used and comfortable with giving people bad news or counseling them and giving them constructive criticism, right? And that's one thing that a lot of leaders are not good at, right? Because we don't want to upset anybody. We don't want to tell anybody they're doing a crappy job. We don't want to, tell people that they're deficient in certain areas. But if you are a leader, these are the things that are required of you, okay? You need to be able to be confrontational in the sense of that, hey, this is what is going on, this is what you've been accused of, this is what we've seen, this is what has been said. What do you have to say about it? Okay, let's gather some facts and talk and figure it out. And so you bring, each party in and you talk to them, okay? And try to figure out, is there some resolution that we can have right here, right now? Okay, do I need to separate you two? Is that gonna fix it? Because in many instances, it's just a personality conflict. I don't get along with you, you don't get along with me, or things have just gone like really bad. We used to be friends, but we're not friends anymore, and I've seen it in the workplace. I had a really bad situation with 2 employees and they were friends to begin with, and then they got into an argument about football. And then they started doing these pranks to each other, right? I don't know if when you have in the office, you guys ever had this prank put on you where you have the keyboard, all right, that your keyboard you type on your computer, and you can pull the keys out and switch the keys around.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how kind of started. They took out the one key, put in another place, made the A the K, made the S the T, made the R the F. And so when you're typing, you're like, what is going on, right? The wrong letter, right? So they did that, right? And then the next time, the guy did another prank and he didn't like it. The next time the guy did another prank. So the pranks kept getting worse and worse, and eventually came to almost a fist fight. Well, it came to a boiling point because one of the guys decided that he was gonna, use the bathroom on the other guy's desk. Exactly. Yeah. No, that's exactly what he did. Okay, that's what he did. Okay, and so when the guy came in the next day, he was sitting there waiting for him, and he knew he did it, and now,
He did it.
yes, yes, of course he did, yes.
Was that in your
Huh?
company?
Yeah, it was at a company,
Okay.
yeah, at a company I worked at. And so, of course, what's wrong with that situation?
No, everything's
Everything's wrong with that situation, right?
far.
All right, it's too far, right? At the end of the day, right? It's first thing is it's crazy. Secondly, right now you're endangering the whole workforce. You're endangering everybody, right? Because now there's a biohazard. Okay, bodily fluids, anything that comes out of your body is a biohazard. Okay, so you just can't do that, right? So guess what? You have to let everybody out the building, send them home early, had to get somebody to come in and clean it up. All right, you know what kind of bill that is? For, it wasn't anything crazy, but it's still the fact that I have to call a commercial cleaner to come clean something up. Okay, so, needs to say, they both got fired. Okay,
Really?
yeah, a little too far. Okay,
Should
That-
be the guy who do the price.
well, yeah, but you gotta think about, somebody provoking you, somebody going, you're going back and forth. It's not like he didn't do stuff then too. It's just that he just took it to another level. Okay, and so these are some of the things that you don't think you're gonna be dealing with, but you will deal with if you're in HR. Okay, if you're in HR, and if you're not in HR, I'm sure other people saw what happened, right, and had to deal with it. Okay, so at the end of the day, the EOC will make sure that the grievance, goes through the appropriate process and is the objective authority to make sure that the company does what it's supposed to do in treating this person fairly. Okay, that's really what they're there for, okay? Just to make sure everything runs smoothly, right? All right. Okay, so when it comes down to the Civil Rights Act 1964 and Title VII, right? The first thing we're going to talk about here is disparate treatment, okay? So disparate treatment is basically when I or you or anyone as a a leader or as a company entity discriminates against a specific individual for whatever reason that's not related to work, okay? I don't like the fact that, he's black. I don't like the fact that he's white. I don't like the fact that he's Muslim. I don't like the fact that, he's, or she's homosexual. Okay? Nothing to do with the job. Okay? No whatsoever. Your hair's purple. Great. Okay? What does that have to do with the job? Okay? But they get discriminated because of that. That's called disparate treatment. That's one person focusing on another person, or a group of people focusing on one person, okay? And so disparate treatment is what you're gonna see most of the time in the workplace, okay? Because you're gonna have managers, supervisors, and it may not be apparent, okay? But they may have some prejudice or some bias or something they don't like about you for whatever reason. I remember after 9/11, any Middle Eastern was discriminated against. And any Middle Eastern was like, look funny at and no, you can't work here, or you can't do this, or you can't, like we don't want you around here because you're Middle Eastern. So like, what are they gonna do? It was a very bad time. And so people got typecast and stereotyped, right? Because of, something that happened that you had nothing to do with, right? And so it happens, and it's very subtle at times, right? It may be pregnancy, okay? Some of the older generation don't believe in necessarily hiring women in the workplace because they feel like you hire women, women get pregnant, they leave work, and you got to save their job for them, right? You can't terminate them, you can't get rid of them. And so now I have to go out and find somebody else to replace you while you're on pregnancy leave, okay? So a lot of people look at it as not necessarily fair and a financial burden, okay? But we have protections against that, and the protections are rightfully there, and they work, okay? So much to the point that now we have paternal leave, okay? We have maternal leave, and now we have paternal leave. The fathers get, I think, 12 weeks now, right, to stay home unpaid, which is the key thing, unpaid, to stay home with their wives, take care of the baby, help the wife, after pregnancy, right? Because in many instances, women were having babies and then a week later they're back at work. Okay, which is not good. All right, we don't want that in the workplace. All right. So disparate treatment, overt and intentional and followed with pattern of practice. Okay, as I said, it's basically someone focusing on that person. It's kind of like bullying, sort of, in the workplace. Okay, you are constantly, hey, there's a promotion coming up, or there's a new job opportunity coming up, and automatically like, no, we're not even looking at you. Why? I do the best work. Yeah, but you're Asian. I don't like you, right? Or you're Japanese. I don't like you. We fought you in World War II. Okay? Sounds stupid, but this is real stuff. It happens all the time. All the time. Okay? People not understanding other cultures and not respecting other cultures and appreciating the differences and what makes, things go, and not really understanding the global landscape. Okay, not understanding that the different things that come from different parts of the world that we don't have here, that we rely on, and it doesn't make any sense to discriminate against somebody because you don't know anything about their culture. Okay. All right. So disparate impact is a little different. Okay. Disparate impact is when a decision or something is done that has a wider impact on the greater good or the bigger group. Okay. So let's say, for instance, I decide that I'm a male CEO, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna take out most of the toilets in the bathrooms. I'm gonna put urinals. Okay, everybody know urinals, the one that men pee. Really, Bonnie, you've seen a urinal before, right? Urinal, where the men pee, the men go to the bathroom, but they're not bathrooms, they're just kind of the thing, yeah, right? I decided I'm gonna put urinals instead of toilets. Okay, so then for someone like Ivani, right? Ivani's not gonna use that. She's a woman, right? She's like, where's the toilet? Where's the toilet paper? Where's all the stuff that goes with it? And like, oh no, I got rid of it because I want to save some money on water, okay, and toilet paper. Like I told you, toilet paper and utilities are expensive for companies, right? They'll spend $1 million a year on that stuff. Easy, okay? And so I do it, and now the men are okay, maybe except for when they have to use the bathroom, right, for something else, and there's a lot longer line, but the women are totally out of luck, right? They got to stand in line with the men, and it's like, okay, what is going on? I can't use a urinal. I need the toilet. So that had a disparate impact, right? Because it didn't affect one person, it affected all the women in the organization, okay? And so once it has a wider reaching, more impactful outcome, then it's called disparate impact. And it doesn't need to be intentional for it to be true, okay? Sometimes people make decisions and they don't think about the second, third, fourth order effects. They don't think about how does that affect, things down the line, right? I like it, works good for me, but how does it affect the guy at the bottom, right? Or the woman in the middle, right? How does that affect? And sometimes you make a decision and it's very closed-minded or it's in a bubble, sort of, right? And so just because you didn't mean to do it, doesn't mean that you're not going to get punished for it, okay? And we have that throughout our law, okay? We have, manslaughter, unintentional manslaughter. We have different degrees of murder, right? We have different degrees of rape. We have different degrees of robbery. Because just because you are in a situation doesn't necessarily mean that you had planned it and that you meant to be in the situation. Sometimes things happen, right? And you have to protect yourself, and maybe you got overzealous, right? There's plenty of cases where people come in, try to rob somebody's house, and then they they get caught and then they're trying to run out the door, trying to leave, and then the homeowner shoots them in the back.
Yeah.
The homeowner's going to jail. They go to prison. Okay? Because you shot somebody in the back while they were trying to leave. Although you're like, well, they were in my house trying to steal from me and they got caught. So now you're saying I don't have the right to defend them, to defend myself? No, you do have the right to defend yourself, but that person was leaving.
Since he was leaving, you should let him go, right?
You should let him go. Exactly. You shouldn't try to go out and harm him because then it's seen as, being vindictive, right? And so that's unintentional because you had no intention of shooting anybody that night, all right? You had done your shooting yesterday, so you're good. So nobody shooting anybody. Guys. It's night class. So you're not intentional, all right? And so that happens all the time in corporate America. CEOs, leadership, they make decisions, they don't understand the impact or greater impact on the larger folks that are underneath them, all right? So, yeah, that's all. All right. So we talked about that, right? All right, so this next area here is super interesting. And it's not as relevant nowadays. It used to be very relevant back in the day, okay? All right, so we have business necessity, BFOQs, bona fide occupational qualifications, and burden proof, right? And so these three concepts basically lend themselves to saying, I cannot hire you, I can't promote you, I can't keep you because you can't fulfill a certain physical obligation or some obligation of the job. Okay, whether it be physical, mental, whatever. My business is so, the core of my business is this particular thing, and you can't do it. And so because you can't do it or meet that requirement, I don't have to hire you or promote you or anything like that. Okay. So we'll start with the first one, business necessity, all right? Necessary for safe and efficient organization operations, all right? So you're saying like, I need to have this done for my business to run successfully, all right? Case in point, maybe not, you may see it, you may not see it anymore, I don't know. But on applications, probably 20 years ago, 25 years ago, there used to always be a standard line for the most part that says, depending on the job, must be able to lift 40 or more pounds. Yeah, they may still have, okay, you saw it, right? All right, so back in the day, they used to use that to disqualify women. Okay, and to say, well, you can't lift 40 pounds. So because you can't lift 40 pounds, we can't hire you, right? We can't promote you.
They do it in another direct way.
Yeah, in an indirect way, right? But
I have a question.
yeah,
Do you think that EE also stand with the owner more than the employee?
no. The OC is independent. They don't work for anyone. They work for the Department of Labor. They're not in the organization. The EOC is just
Yeah, I know.
right.
I'm talking about the loan and.
So I see what you're saying. So basically, the EOC is objective, right, and non-biased. It's supposed to be non-biased, but I'm sure there's certain situations where they look at the case, they look at the situation, and figure out or think about, okay, what are the ramifications of the outcome of this case, right? If we decide to say, hey, it's okay for employees to come in and do certain things, and the employer is wrong, what's gonna happen is that all the other companies are gonna find out about the outcome, right? And then the employees are gonna find out about it. And then they're gonna start doing it. And you kind of get this cascading effect of, okay, well, they did it at Disney. The Disney employees get away with it, and the EOC said, came in and adjudicated, and that case was good to go. The employee won. So I'm gonna do it here too. Like, let's just say I'm trying to think of a situation that kind of makes sense. let's just say the EOC says, hey, um, a pregnant woman is allowed to come in late. Like, let's just say there's a woman, right? She's pregnant. She comes to work late every day while she's pregnant. Okay, and the company says, we're gonna fire you. And then she files a grievance with HR, and then it goes to the EOC. Okay, and the EOC says, look, she's pregnant, so there's certain things that come with that, and you have to accommodate her. There's reasonable accommodation, and we'll get to that in a minute, right? Reasonable accommodation. There's certain things that go with being sick, being pregnant, you know, being in a physical state. After you have surgery, are you ready to go back to work? No, if you're sick, do I want you at work? No, I don't want you at work. I want you home, right? And so they just say, for instance, they say we're gonna fire you because you're always late to work and because you have morning sickness or whatever the case may be, and it's just hard to make it to work, right? And the EOC says, you know what? The employee is correct, and we are siding with the employee because you should have reasonable accommodation for this employee because she's pregnant, okay? So what that does is kind of sets a precedence across the board, sort of, right? So let's just say it happens here at the school, all right, at this school. So what's gonna happen is the people that work at SDSU are gonna hear about it. Oh, at CMU, EOC said, hey, it's good to go for pregnant people to be late.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
We have to do it. This is-
right, SDSU is gonna, all the employees that are pregnant over there, go, hey, we could be late too. Okay,
And then all the,
Expanding, yeah.
now all the schools, right? Unintended consequence, right? That's not what the EOC meant. The EOC didn't say all pregnant women can come to work late. The EOC said, based on your physical condition that's related to pregnancy, if you need to be late, yes, you should allow reasonable accommodation. But just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you are allowed to be late.
So that as an advice or they have authority to enforce the company?
They have authority to enforce it, yes.
Yeah, so they can enforce the company to do that.
Yeah,
And
EOC,
the
yes,
company should do.
yes, EOC has the authority to tell the company, this is what you're gonna do.
And the company should do.
The company's going to do it. Yeah, company is going to do it. There's no should or they're going to do it. Okay, if not, you're gonna get fined. Okay, and the EOC fines, they usually start about $25,000 a day. Oh, so you don't want an EOC fine, just like you don't want an OSHA fine. All right, there's certain fines you don't want. OSHA, EOC, 25,000 a day, and they go up every week or so. It's like the mob. Okay, the juice is running, the Vic, okay, it's running. All right, and so, to answer your question a lot, like, yes, it can have, the EOC is definitely objective, but they also look at the criteria in certain circumstances of the case and figure out what kind of impact is it gonna have, right? Because then it may be bumped up to the next level, right? It may go from the city to the state to the federal level, right? Because it's such an important case that's gonna decide a lot of things. So, of course, we already have that, the pregnancy thing. I just use an example, right? We have reasonable accommodations, right? For people, with disabilities, people that are pregnant, people that are, sick or in general, right? There's a reasonable accommodation. We'll get to that, all right? Okay, so then the next one is BFOQ. All right, so BFOQ is really a legitimate or very specific reason as to why I can discriminate against you and not hire you, promote you, or retain you, okay? So there was a case, and I'm just using an example so you guys get a better understanding of it, right? So there's a case here in San Diego, probably, I want to say 10, 15 years ago, maybe, okay? And a young lady, she goes into a strip club, okay? And she applies to be a dancer at a strip club, okay, gentleman's club, all right? And on the application, there's always the question about, are you pregnant? Okay, and she said yes, she's pregnant. So they get the application, she sits down, they look at it, everything is good till they get to that part. And they said, well, you're pregnant we can't hire you. She goes, why not? Well, you're pregnant. Okay, so she files a grievance. She files a case against them for, what is it called? It's some kind of discrimination, but basically, workplace discrimination or not hiring, discrimination, right? And so she goes to court, right, and they litigate this thing, right? And so she ends up losing, okay? Why do you think she lost the case?
Good logic.
What, logic like what?
You have a baby.
So okay, so wait a minute,
But she's pregnant.
let me give you one more fact, right? She's not showing. If she didn't tell you, you wouldn't know she was pregnant.
But she wrote it.
She wrote it, right? Yeah, she wrote it, but she doesn't physically look like she's pregnant.
Even though, I know
Okay.
people who, after 3-4 months, she will look like pregnant. There's a lot of women who finish the 9th month and they don't have a big,
Big stomach, right?
It's a safety bullet.
Okay, safety, okay. What else?
She have a soul inside her stomach, and yeah, people want that.
Okay, yeah, so back to safety.
Yeah, because the job needs physical movement. And
Any, what is any of?
Physical
physical movement. That's,
movement.
that's,
Okay, okay,
that's required, that's huge, may.
yeah, you close, but that's not the reason she lost. You close, but that's not it. Those are all reasons as to why that particular law is there, or that particular thing happens. Some of the criteria, yeah, safety, health of the baby, health of the mother, that kind of thing.
Job requirement.
Job requirement, in what way?
For example, they put sometimes you have to be able to lift that weight. You have to be able to, because I remember an accident when employee had an accident and he cannot do his work,
Mhm.
they can be able to let him go because he didn't meet the job requirement anymore.
Yeah, okay. It is a job requirement, but needs a little more. Now, what you think about it?
Job requirement, because I believe there's smoke over there.
Mhm. No. Mhm. So think about the job itself, right?
Yeah, you gotta have some kind of figure that you have to maintain,
Right? If you go to the strip club, people that go to the strip club, what do they go for? They what? Entertainment, right? But what are they looking at? They're looking at women, right? Or men, or whatever, okay? Looking at your physical body, right? Okay? So physically speaking, right, there's a certain look they have to have, right? If he were to hire her, right, although she's not pregnant, she's not showing, she's pregnant, but she's not showing, right? In the next 3 or 4 months, I think when you guys said it, she's eventually gonna start showing, right? That is not aesthetically pleasing to the consumer. Right. That goes to the core of the business. The business is attractiveness, sexiness, right?
So she would, let's say, put a bad image on the company.
No, she won't put a bad image on the company. It's just that the people that come into the strip club or to the gentleman's club, they are not necessarily, unless they're really, really weird, right? They don't want to see a pregnant woman dancing at a strip club.
She don't serve the consumer needs.
She don't serve the consumer needs, exactly, right? Means that she doesn't serve the business needs, okay? And so because of that, it's a BFOQ, right? It's a bona fide occupational qualification because she cannot meet one of the requirements for the job. And one of the requirements for the job as a as a dancer, right, is to be sexually or aesthetically pleasing. It's not necessarily sexually, but just be appealing, right? Aesthetically appealing. Like people look at you, they want to watch you, they want to give you the money, whatever it is that they do, right? That's part of the job. So if you can't do that, then why should I hire you?
So what the difference between the previous concept?
Business necessity?
Yeah.
Business necessity is a little looser. Business necessity, it's really hard for the company to use business necessity because business necessity is more like something general. Like 40 pounds, yeah, but it doesn't go to the core of the business, all right? If you can't lift 40 pounds, that's okay. Somebody else will lift the 40 pounds for you, all right? But here, you have to have that particular attribute. You need to be a certain way, right?
More deep,
Huh?
more deep.
Yeah, it's more deeper, right? The business necessity is the lowest sense of the defense for a company, all right? This is the weakest one they could use. If they use this one, they're probably gonna lose the case,
Mhm.
okay? As you go further down, you get stronger with your case, right? Then another case with BFOQs with, Abercrombie and Fitch. Everybody familiar with Abercrombie and Fitch?
I'm proud.
Huh?
I'm proud. So proud.
What's that?
I'm proud. Proud.
Yeah, the brand. The one that's in the mall clothing,
Yeah, for t-shirt.
yeah, t-shirts and stuff, that kind of thing, right? They have a certain image that they want to portray. They have a certain look that they like to have. Have you ever seen the commercials or the brochures or when you go to the mall, you see the people that are models for them? What do they look like? They look a certain way, okay? And so the people that work in the store, they want to look a certain way also. So there was a case where a young lady went in, she was Muslim, right? She had the hijab on and she had, all the traditional garb on. And she went in for the job, and the lady that was interviewing, the store manager that was interviewing her, hired her. Said, I like you, you're good. Come on, you can start Monday. She gets there Monday. On Tuesday, the regional manager comes in to just check the store out. And he says, yeah, she's gonna have to take the head wrap off. Can't have that. And so she said, no, it's a religious, protection. It's part of my, religion, part of my life. It's not a fashion piece. It's not an accessory. This is religion, right?
I can't change it.
And I can't change it like that, right? You're gonna get me in trouble, okay? And so, they fired her. Okay, they fired her. They got rid of her. So she filed a grievance, okay, for wrongful termination. They went to court, and guess what? She lost.
So, she
Lost,
what?
okay? She lost because it specifically says in the job description and in the job contract that she needs to look a certain way. She has
She
to,
didn't read the policy.
yeah, nobody
Just sign
reads it,
it, yeah.
yeah, nobody reads that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fine print, you just sign it, okay? You want the job, you sign it, all right? She didn't look like what they wanted her to look. She didn't represent the company.
But the manager hired her.
The manager hired, yes, the manager hired her, but that was a mistake on the manager's part, yeah. But nonetheless, you go back to the law. This is where it's important for HR to understand the law. You go back to the law.
So we have to read carefully that
You
one.
have to read carefully, right? She didn't fit the image that the store or the brand clearly articulated. Clearly, everybody that knows anything about Abercrombie and Fitch, they have a certain image that they want to portray. And that's their right as a business to do so, right? And so if someone doesn't fit that image in their eyes, then they can let them go, okay? BFOQ, okay? All right, so burden of proof, all right? Burden of proof basically says that it's on you, okay? And it's not. So I'm reading it right because it's different in court and as is different for EOC, okay? So in the legal sense, as far as court goes, burden of proof is usually on the not the plaintiff, on the plaintiff, excuse me, not the defendant, the plaintiff, okay? So if I say, hey, you are, that's not true. So let me put it this way. So let's just say I sue the school, okay? And I say the school discriminated against me and didn't promote me because I'm Black, okay? It's up to the school to prove that they didn't discriminate. Vice up to me to prove that they did. You see the difference? The burden of proof is on them. If they can't prove that they didn't do what I'm accusing them of, then I'm gonna win. Okay?
If they didn't prove, then they're gonna win.
Yes, well, I don't have to prove anything. I'm just accusing you. I'm accusing the school of doing something, and they have to prove that whatever I said, that's not what happened. That's not true. I don't have to prove anything. Okay? The burden of proof is on them, right? So why do you think the burden of proof is on the school and not me? Why do you think the school has to prove that they didn't do it, even though I'm accusing them?
Because they are currently employees, then. So,
No.
They have the resources.
They have the resources, okay? Think about it, all right? The school can go out and get an expensive lawyer. I can't. Okay, I don't have that kind of money. All right? The school can tie me up in the courts for 10, 15, 20 years if they want. Okay? I can't afford that. They're gonna basically wait me out. They're gonna keep doing stuff, appeal after appeal or injunction after injunction, right? Kind of like Donald Trump does. Every time something's against him, he puts something in, right? And what happens is something that should have been figured out in 1 year, now it's 5, 10, 15 years later, right? There's still cases that in corporate America that are 15 years old because the companies keep pushing it, they keep throwing something else in there.
Yeah, the lawyer keep doing.
The lawyer keep doing injunction, they do this, they do that to stall. Because they figure eventually you're gonna run out of money. You're gonna run out of money, you're gonna run out of patience, you're gonna get tired, you're just gonna give up, you're gonna get beat up. Okay, and you're just like, I'm done, I'm over it, okay? It's done, right? And there's a lot of cases like that. They're a little bit older now, not as much nowadays because we're a different society as far as respecting the workplace and respecting employees and understanding that. And there's a switch in the burden of proof, all right? In the sense that, hey, this is one person versus a big company, a big entity. It's up to you to prove that whatever they said that you did, you didn't do. Prove it to me, all right? Because I'm not gonna have them do it because they don't have the resources to do that, but you do. So prove it to me, okay? So burden of proof is extremely important. It's different, I guess it's kind of the same in a court, sort of. Usually the burden of proof is on the plaintiff in court. The person that's making the accusation, the burden of proof is usually on them. But in corporate America, it's different. It depends on who has the most business, depends who has the most resources. Okay? All right, what time is it?
But this one is just for the already established employee, right?
Um,
Nothing new hiring on the employee or a new employee.
No, yeah, it could be new employer. You could be
Could be
somebody,
new?
because, yeah, it could be new. So you can go in, because there's different rules. There's a forfeit rule. There's different rules when it comes to hiring. Okay, so, and this is something that happens kind of all the time. You go in for a job, right? Do you know how many other people apply for the job? Do you know who applied for the job? No, you have no idea, right? The only thing you know is that you came in and you're one of 100, you could be one of one. You have no idea. But you also know if they're discriminating against you, right? So let's just say you're going for the job, you don't get the job, but you're qualified in every way. Okay, all the boxes check. And maybe you happen to be Middle Eastern, they don't wanna, the hiring manager is like, I don't like this. I don't like Asian, I don't like black people, I don't like, I don't like white people, whatever it is, okay? And they say, no, you didn't get the job. And then they turn around the very next day or the next applicant that comes in, same qualifications, maybe they're just white, or maybe they're a woman or something, they like them based on their physical opinion and they hire them, okay? Instead of you.
Okay.
And you find out. And this is the hard part about this, suing for wrongful hiring practices, right? Because you really don't know, right? Once you leave the interview, you don't know who gets the job, and most people don't care. Most people don't look back and say, oh, did you get the job? Who got the job? I want to know. Some people do, but most people don't, right? But if you happen to find out and you see that you are more qualified than the person that they hired, or you're just as qualified as the person that they hired, all right? Then you might put in a grievance, or you might put in a suit into the EOC and say, hey, you know what? I didn't get hiring discrimination, and I believe it's because I was Black, right? And this happened all the time in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, even the 70s and 80s to African Americans, right? Hispanic, Latino, Latina, American, Asian American, anybody for the most part that wasn't white in many instances got discriminated against, okay? And white females discriminated against, right? Very white male dominated environment, and they were very particular about who they let in and who they let out and did those kind of things, right? And so you could file a suit, right? And not be an employee of the company, right? And then they would have to have the burden of proof to show that they didn't have bad hiring practices, right? But a lot of companies do get sued for that, right? Because nowadays, especially, you can find out pretty quickly who got the job, okay, instead of you. And you can check out all their credentials and all this other stuff and see, okay, like this person was more qualified or that kind of thing. The problem is that it's subjective in the sense that, because part of the interview process is fit, right? Personality fit, right? Your personality may not fit with the company from the perspective of the hiring manager. So they were like, yeah, you're qualified, but you didn't fit, right? Which is normally the go-to answer. Right? And that's the hard part to prove, right? Unless you have some documentation that said, I didn't hire that person because they were XYZ, but I hired this person because they were XYZ. It's very hard to prove, right? And so most people don't even bother with that particular instance. So, but you don't need to be part of the company to file suit against them, right? You can get fired and file suit against them, right? You don't have to be an employee. Right? Any other questions?
I have just a
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
What if you take a job with the specific job description? After you start, the employer changed or increased the job
It's a good one.
description. Yeah.
Okay.
This is under which concern? Fair and of proof or
No, none of those.
or you?
None of those. So you're saying that going for a job, the job that was posted says XYZ,
Yeah.
and then when I get to the job, they say, no, it's for ABC.
Yeah.
Right? That's illegal. Okay, that's kind of what they call bait and switch, right? It's more in marketing, that term bait and switch. So basically, I put something out in front of you that's very nice looking, very sexy. Everybody wants this.
Yeah.
$150,000. You get every other Friday off, and this is the job. You come in, and then they say, "Oh no, that's not really the job. We filled that position, but we have this other job here, and it's a telemarketer job. You're on the phone 12 hours a day. We're gonna pay you $17 an hour, and you have to work weekends. You want it?" Right? Illegal. It's illegal.
What if the same job description would increase with more?
What do you mean, with more money?
No, more job description, more taxes, yeah.
Oh, same job, more tax? No, that's not illegal. That's fine.
Not illegal, that's normal,
That's normal.
really?
Yeah.
Everyone do that.
Yeah. It's not necessarily everyone does it. It's just that what you see on the job description is
Bullet points, like.
yeah, they're basically the core requirements of the job, right? You're gonna have to just report A, you got to report B, you gotta go to this meeting, you gotta do this, right? These are all the things that are required of the job. But in between each one of those, there's things that they don't list on the job description that you're gonna have to do, that are inherent to the job, right?
By default.
By default, yeah, by default, right? There's just certain things you have to do with the job. Like, you're gonna be a supervisor. There's certain things they'll say supervise 20 people. Great, right? But supervising 20 people, that's just not a simple thing, right? You gotta counsel them every quarter. You gotta see how they're doing. You gotta talk to them, right? That's not the job description, but it's part of the job, right? So there's gonna be things that, they're gonna say or ask that aren't necessarily there. Now, if you had the job description and then they try to throw extra things that are compensable, okay? That means that there are things that they're asking you to do that should be monetized, that should be paid for, okay?
Like extra.
They're extra, right? Extra responsibility, okay? So you come in for the job as the CFO, and you're like, good to go, and they go, oh, as a matter of fact, we need you to be a COO too, and the CTO, and the CIO. You okay with that? Oh, wait. Same pay? Yeah, same pay. No,
Nobody has
Okay,
taken.
right. It's not illegal per se, right? But it's not honest either. Okay? So nobody's gonna go to jail over it, but it's a bait and switch. It's a tactic they use in the workplace all the time because there's some jobs, you post them, nobody's gonna come. Hey, I need a toilet cleaner. How many people you think apply for that job? To clean the toilets, take out the trash. Nobody. That's all you do. You just clean the toilet, take out the trash. Somebody, imagine being the toilet cleaner or person to take out the trash at a club. Right? Or someplace where people go party and stuff and they're drinking alcohol, they're throwing up all over the place. You want to do that job? No. Guess what? I have a bar manager job open. It's in the bar, you manage the bartenders, from time to time you have to do a little cleanup, but nothing big.
Manage all the place.
Right.
You see him with the.
Guess what? You're the bar manager. Yeah.
The Marine Corps exchange, one of their exchange, I think the auto parts store
Yeah.
that they have.
Mhm.
The job is a cashier, but then, when you start that, you also have to do the toilet.
Yeah, you gotta clean the bathroom, you gotta sweep, you gotta open, you gotta close, you gotta stock, you gotta do all this stuff, right?
But it's not a job description.
It's not job description, the job description is store manager or cashier,
So that's legal?
that's legal too,
Okay.
that's legal, yes, that's legal, because it's hard to prove. Right? It's not that it's necessarily illegal, and it's not necessarily legal or not legal, it's just hard to prove. It's hard to say like, oh, you intentionally meant to do that, right? But there's some jobs that you just know, and they do it all the time. Some companies, they have this turnover on jobs, right? And they know that nobody's gonna come in to mop the floors. If you just put, I need a floor mopper, and that's the job description, mop floors 4 times a day, clean out the bucket twice a day. I need you here 8 to 5. I need you to replace the mop heads. $5 an hour. You gonna go to that job? No. But guess what? You are the supervisor of janitorial department or janitorial technician,
Room service. supervisor.
right? Room service, hospitality services.
They with the work, that's it.
You go in and they say,
And also, we compete with convenience, right?
yeah, I do it.
I am a supervisor.
yeah, I'm a supervisor, right? Sounds good, right? They give you the mop and then get the mopping. Who you supervising? The mop? The mop works for you. That's you're the mop boss, okay? Okay, good work, right? And it happens all the time.
Yeah.
That's just the workplace. And unfortunately, that's just the way
I will recharge you.
things
again.
work, right? It doesn't matter where you go. It's like that everywhere. In the United States, abroad. Just certain jobs people don't want to do. Okay, certain jobs, but that's a whole nother topic. About the whole social, economic, political system and all that nonsense. Okay. All right. So let's take a quick 10-minute break and then come on back. Rena, you're not driving.
She was driving before like 10
I know. He's always driving. We're taking a 10-minute break right now. You hear me?
There.
What's up?
Just a question for.
What you got? How can I find this page or check it out? From when? Just the book, in the book. I have to get that book, yeah. Okay. I would, I check in by Google, I did find it. No, not the book, yes, the book.
Question about punctuation.
Yeah,
I didn't understand your point last time.
what is, what I say
For the
exactly?
reference punctuation, I cannot.
The reference punctuation or the citation punctuation?
Citation.
Okay.
I believe because I.
What's that one?
I wanna leave, I have some.
What you got to do? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay, I see.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Um,
Because I did submit mine yet, I have ready, but
okay,
because I want to go back and see
okay.
to make sure.
Let me
that
see.
there's Any point.
Let me see what you got.
Mine.
Okay, go back.
Oh, that's not me. No,
I would say, yeah.
that's another Muhammad.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, Muhammad in the class, yeah. You got what you got. Okay, so it relates to three or more authors and placements. Okay, so I think we'll go to full punctuation. Okay, so let me show you real quick. Let's see here. All right,
I
so
believe because I had to put before the period.
yes,
That's
so
fine.
the period goes after the
Oh,
citation.
okay, yeah, I did that.
Okay,
Here,
and then,
see,
wait, yeah.
I believe I could.
Paste it,
Yeah,
yeah. Yep, it goes after, yep.
okay.
And then go back to the, and then here, Branton, go Branton. So whenever you have, three or more authors,
Huh?
it should be Bratton, the first guy, and then et al. Period,
Oh.
comma, in the year. So you don't have to put all the authors.
Just the first one?
It's, yeah, I'll show you real quick. So it should be like this.
That's the first time I heard that. Good information.
It should be like this.
Okay, that's me.
And then all.
Oh, ETA all?
Actually, yeah. No. Okay. Yeah, it should be Bratton et al. It might be a comment that goes between, I can't remember, but, yeah, so three or more authors, you put et al. Okay, and you'll find that in the APA manual. Or
Yeah.
if you look at,
I read the APL manual, but sometimes it's not easy to follow
Yeah.
all the rules.
try, you guys need to try.
Yeah, I'm doing my best. That's why I asked for each one of them to improve my items.
Yeah, try Purdue Owl.
Yeah,
Purdue Owl.
Okay.
Yeah, it's from the Purdue University, and they have this it's not a program, it's a website, and basically they show you all the APA stuff, they format it for you. They do everything for you. So it's Purdue University APA site.
And at all, it should be all capital letter or small letter?
Small letters, F,
Yeah, yeah.
period. Behind it, and then the comma. Okay.
only for three or more, right?
Three or more. Yeah. Yeah, three or more authors.
And about the comma between the author name and the year of, I heard that, I read in one place that we take the exact word, then we have to use, the comma. If we take the idea, we don't have to put the comma.
As far as, no, it's in the citation?
Yes,
Right, that has nothing to do.
Yeah, cool.
No.
Anyway,
It
okay.
depends on how you do it. So if you're citing, you may say according to, according
to the author,
to K's,
uh-huh,
right? and then you may have a quotation that you.
Yeah, if I use the same one, yeah.
Sky is blue, right?
Uh-huh.
And then, at the end, what you're gonna have is, the page number,
Uh-huh,
page 4, and then you'll have the period there,
yeah,
right? So you have your citation here, right, and you have the year, excuse me, I forgot to do that, 2023,
okay.
and then comma, quotation, and then you have the page, and
Mhm.
then you have the punctuation on it. But that's the only time, whenever you use the author's name in the sentence,
It means that we're taking what they say.
yeah, we take, not necessarily,
Uh-huh.
you could just put according to page and then the citation, the year, right?
Usually I do that if I'm taking numbers, if I'm taking data or chart,
Right,
I put that.
but you don't have to necessarily, if it's not a quote, if you're still paraphrasing, you just keep it, the same.
Yeah.
Case, but you put the year, but you
Uh-huh.
say case, but you don't put the author's name in the parentheses.
Okay.
You just put it according to case, and you put the year in parentheses, and then whatever else you're gonna say. If it's a quote, then you put the page number at the end, in the period. If it's no quote, you just period. You would put a citation at the end. You would say according to case, sky is blue. Then, that's it.
Put the whole idea and
And
then,
then put your idea, yeah, but you wouldn't put a citation at the end because you already decided here.
Okay.
In the beginning. Okay?
thank you, Professor.
You guys, if you need APA help, go to Purdue OWL, it's from the Purdue University. And they have a whole site and you put the text in, it'll put in APA format for you. And show you has all the rules and everything. So Purdue OWL on Google. Huh?
So it's pretty good, too, and, citation machine.
Yeah, citation machine, yeah, a lot of this stuff.
Put it in order for you.
In order, yeah. Windows does it too.
Yeah.
If you use, Microsoft.
The word,
Mhm. Yep.
One other question.
Yeah.
Turnitin.com.
Yeah.
If the school have a subscription for it,
Mhm.
or we do?
Yeah, if you. It
For
doesn't have,
students,
yeah, it doesn't have an individual subscription.
Yeah.
But we have a subscription that we use, so when you submit your paper or any written work, yeah, it automatically goes to Turnitin.
so there's a username and a password,
No, there's no, like, you have to go sign up for it yourself as an individual, but the school has it on the system, on the portal, but you can't, you might be able to get it. I mean, it might be as a resource for the student, but what happens is each assignment automatically, once you submit it, they go to turn it in,
but
and then
that's for faculty,
Yeah,
use.
that's for faculty use.
There's none for the students.
You might be able to use it too. There should be a link on the resources.
Yeah,
on the
I
portal?
heard that it's not Turnitin.com, but it's something else, but it's asking you to.
Plagiarism checker or
pay
something?
for it.
Oh, it's actually to pay for it? Yeah, then the school doesn't have it for the students then.
Okay,
Yeah, but there's other stuff out there that's free. That
Oh,
you
there
can
is?
use, yeah.
okay.
Just put in plagiarism checker or free plagiarism checker, and there'll be plenty of stuff that pulls up, and you can set it.
Free? Okay.
Yeah, you can set it and see. What else could you do? Windows actually has a checker, but it has to be, you have to have Microsoft Office 365. Because then it connects to another piece of software that they use and it checks your plagiarism. They have to check it.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's different tools, but you can find something
Yeah,
free.
because I signed on the resources and I tried to use it and then it's asking me to,
Yeah.
sign out and, pay for it.
We used to have it free, and then they took it away, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So,
Old school have their own, program,
yeah.
plagiarism, tool.
Well, most of the schools use Turnitin, but they also have some other stuff they use, and most of the schools, depending on the size of the school, they'll have it for free for the students. We just don't have the resources here. To have them free, I guess. But there's a lot of free stuff on the internet.
I think we just give a Grammarly, tool for free.
Grammarly do have, Grammarly is free.
The first I heard of.
Yeah.
The school are giving them out.
Yeah, Grammarly, the school will give you that. Yeah, pre-subscription is that. So I would use that too, because they have a plagiarism checker too.
That's good.
You have to go, the thing with that one, you have to go in and set the levels. So the different levels in Grammarly, there's the kind of like elementary school level, there's high school level, there's undergrad level, and then there's graduate level. So you want to set it to the highest level, and then once you set it to the highest level, it'll screen your papers that way. Yeah, but it's default set at the lowest level. So he won't pull anything up, because they'll think, you're writing for middle school, elementary school, you're writing a paper for, book report or something. So it's not gonna look at it that hard. If you put the graduate level, it'll do APA. Take APA stuff. So, and that's free, that's guaranteed. They don't tell you a lot of stuff. Around this place.
We finished today at 7:30.
All right. Just, enrollment. Um. So one of the things that happens basically, not basically, but often enough within the workplace is that someone files a grievance, okay, against the company. And so while the investigation is going on, the person is still in the company, right? Still working for the organization. So what we have to do is basically separate them, okay? Depending on what it is, right? Or whatever the offense is. If it's something minor, maybe, personality conflict, then we just, hey, you sit over there, you sit over there. If it's something more egregious and more, serious, then maybe we need to just move departments altogether, or maybe we need to have you working from home or something to that effect, right? But at the end of the day, the person doesn't just, whoever made the accusation doesn't just get to go, right? Mom, come on, can you close the door for me, please? Thank you. And so what sometimes happens is something called retaliation, right? Very straightforward, just like the word says. Companies or the boss or whoever it is will retaliate against that person because they filed a grievance. And when by retaliation, I'm saying that they're gonna take some action or actions against that person that are unfavorable and prejudicial and maybe are not fair to that person, right? So for instance, you file a claim, you've been, you think you got discriminated against from getting promoted because of your race and you file a grievance. And so while that's going on, the investigation anyway, they say you sit over there, you sit over there, but you still work for the same people, okay? And so there's an opportunity that comes up, right? Or there's different things that need to be done. Let's just go back to, let's just say, for instance, hey, we have a janitorial service that cleans the bathrooms, all right? But we let them go. So guess what? You gotta clean the bathrooms now, okay? That's not my job description. That's nothing I ever done before while I worked here. That's not my responsibility. But it's a retaliation because you filed a grievance. And so I'm trying to get back at you. I'm trying to do stuff to make it unfavorable for you, right? They're trying to do things to make you feel uncomfortable and make you feel bad. Was that?
To leave.
Yeah, to make you leave, right? To make you go.
They push you to quit.
Yeah, they push you to quit, right? Or they just want to make it, make a point, right? Like, we don't like you said stuff back about the company, you said back about my buddy Jim or whoever it is, right? So we're gonna retaliate against you, right? Retaliation is illegal, okay? If there's retaliation, then that needs to be reported by the person that's being retaliated against, right? And it happens quite often, and it may happen and you may not know it's happening. It may happen in subtle ways where, oh, we were going to promote you, we were going to give you this particular assignment or this project, but we're not going to anymore because you filed a grievance. And so we're gonna give it to that person, even though that we know that person is not as good as you, and it's nothing they know what to do, how to do it, but we're gonna make it uncomfortable and tough for you, and we're gonna make it suck for you, okay? So retaliation is illegal, and once that happens, it needs to be reported up, and then that has a huge impact on what happens later on down the line when it comes to the case. Because if you retaliate, in many instances, that's an indication that you probably did what they said you did. Okay? If you don't retaliate, most people that are innocent and the company's innocent, like, hey, it was unintentional, that's not what I meant by that. Like, they're not gonna retaliate against you in most instances, right? But it's almost like having a jury tampering, sort of, or witness tampering. Okay, in our judicial system, right, we have our witnesses that go to court and they testify in the case, right? But sometimes you'll have a witness that was supposed to testify, right? And then they go back and say, I don't want to testify anymore. Okay? Why? They're scared, right? Why are you scared? Well, such and such cousin said they're gonna kill me and my whole family if I testify. So I'm not gonna testify. Okay? Well, if you don't testify, then they're gonna let go free. I guess they're gonna go free because I'm not gonna testify, right? That's a form of retaliation, sort of, right? It's really yeah, it's like intimidation. There's a name for it in the legal system, but it's illegal also. Okay, and it's illegal in the workplace. You cannot retaliate against your employees just because they filed a grievance against you. Right? In most cases, the grievances are usually legit, and it's probably something that's happening in your company that you're not familiar with or that you're not aware of, right? Because there's something else called what we call incidental exposure. Okay, has anybody ever heard that term before? Incidental exposure? Okay, so for instance, and this is where leadership matters. Okay, this is where being the boss and being aware of everything that's going on in your company or your organization is important. So when you talk about incidental exposure, so let's just say you work for a company. Let's just say work for Domino's or something, right? And they give you a car to deliver the pizza, okay? And they let you take the car home. So one day you get done delivering the pizza, you're not working, you're off the clock. You decide you're gonna go to the club. You go to the bar, have a couple drinks.
With the Domino's car.
Huh?
With the
With the Domino's car, with the car they
Yeah.
gave you, right? And then you hit somebody and that person dies. Who's liable?
Me, the company. No, me.
You as an individual,
No, the driver of the company.
the driver in the company.
The driver.
It depends on if the company makes him sign something that he's not responsible.
There you go. All right. It depends, right? If the company made you sign something and said, we are not liable for your actions when you are off the clock. Okay. This car is not to be used for personal reasons, right? As long as that's outlined in the contract somewhere, the thing you signed, you're fine. But that wasn't always the case, right? And you also have situations where you can use the car for personal reasons, right? So, for instance, when I worked at Toyota, we got a car. I could pick any car I wanted, any Lexus, Toyota, whatever. Hey, it's your car, okay? And as long as you worked at the company, you get the car, right? I used it for personal reasons and I used for professional reasons. I used it for the work.
What do you pick?
Huh? I had it, I had I had the RC, I had the GS,
Oh.
I had the, not the Land Cruiser, not the Land Cruiser, what's the other one underneath, the Forerunner, huh?
What is it?
Which one, Land Cruiser, Forerunner? Forerunner, yeah, I had the Forerunner.
That's a square.
No, so there were certain ones they wouldn't let you drive. Because, it wasn't because they didn't want you to drive, because they was high demand. Tacoma, Land Cruiser, Sequoia, a lot of customers want those cars. So now they're gonna give you the car as an employee to drive when they could sell it, all right? Because they give it to me, it's free. They pay for everything except for gas. The insurance, the maintenance, everything the company pays for, right? But let's just say I used the car, right, personal reasons, and I hit somebody and the person dies. Who gets sued?
As he said, it depends.
It depends, right? So you'll get sued personally and the company will get sued too. Okay, in that particular instance. Okay, unless there's something specifically that's set. And the other thing is that it depends on the situation itself. So if I'm inebriated, right, if I'm drunk and I'm driving the car and hit somebody, it's on me. If I'm just riding down the street and there's an accident, it's on me and the company. Okay, even if it's after hours. If it's during hours, easy case. If it's after hours, still,
Yeah,
Right.
the company will also.
the company will also be liable. 9 times out of 10, the company, the judge normally removes the company. If the compensation is covered by the insurance company. Okay, so if the insurance doesn't cover the damages, then they will go after the company because the company has lots of resources. All right, and so when you look at, incidental exposure, if you work for me and you do something while you're on the job, I'm liable as the boss, as the leader, as the CEO, as the company. Even though you were not in the capacity of working, right? You weren't doing anything for me. You were out doing whatever you were doing, and you killed somebody, you stabbed somebody, you murdered somebody, you stole something, whatever the case may be, right? You did some crazy stuff. There's only a few organizations that will be kind of immune from that. The military, okay? Government agencies usually don't have to deal with that. But the problem is that you're still gonna have this association, all right? You ever notice whenever somebody does something bad and it's in the news, first thing is like, oh, they got fired from their job. We gotta cut you off. We gotta disassociate ourselves from you. Because now, although we had nothing to do with what it is you did, because you work for us, people are gonna start coming in here asking questions. Did you guys notice anything strange? Did he act funny? What was he saying? Did he ever say anything about he's gonna go shoot people? Did he ever, those kind of questions, right?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't notice anything? Like, were you negligent, right?
Even the image of the company, the journalist will.
Right. Once you get negligent, all companies, they get nervous, right? Nobody wants to hear they were negligent.
Even the competitors will start talking.
Everybody's gonna start messing with you, okay? And so most companies try to disassociate themselves from the person as much as they can. Now, if the person is a higher level person or is a CEO or a board member or something like that you just can't get rid of like that, right? CEOs you can usually get rid of pretty easy, right? But let's say the board member or somebody that actually owns the company, like let's just say Mark Zuckerberg, something happens, he does something. You can't get rid of him. He owns the company. So guess what, Facebook? You gotta deal with it, right? But he is the company at the end of the day, right? It's his company. He's the one that's gonna take the fall. He's the one that's got to pay the fines and that kind of thing, right? So incidental exposure is something that we worry about in HR, especially when you have assets that you're giving to the employee, all right? Simple as your cell phone, right? Let's just say you, perfect example. There's a case where employee had two phones, work phone and personal phone. And the employee committed a murder, all right? But they forgot that they had their work phone in the car. They left their phone at home, right? Because you have your phone with you, they can ping you, they can kind of locate you or say you were in this vicinity because whenever your phone is on, it pings off of towers, whether you're using it or not. Unless it's turned off. If it's not turned off, it's pinging now.
Like,
It's telling me exactly where you're at in the general vicinity, right? If the police were looking for you right now, they would know you're within this radius here. They would find you, right? So he left his personal phone at home, but he forgot about his work phone. And so he had his work phone and he was using it to communicate back and forth with the person that had hired him to do this hit or whatever it is they do. All right. And so he thought he got away with it till they said, hey, we've been told that you have a work phone. We need to do a forensic analysis on your work phone. And he was like, oh yeah, no problem. He forgot he had it in the car with him in that moment. And so they did forensic analysis, and then boom, come to find out he was going back and forth in the text and with the guy or gal, whoever hired him, and they convicted him off of that. Okay. And so, guess what? The company got sued too. Because the phone belonged to the company. Right? Although the company didn't have anything to do with it, the fact is you're using company property to commit a crime, right? Just in the same way that companies make money or retain the rights to certain products that you make within their lab using their resources, is the same way that they use it when something bad has happened, right? So like, for instance, everybody knows Gatorade, right? Gatorade, the drink, Gatorade,
yeah, drink.
the drink, Gatorade. Never heard Gatorade, Powerade?
The G.
Yeah, Big G, Powerade, Gatorade, whatever, right? Anybody know where Gatorade, who invented Gatorade? No? But you know where, like, where it's from or that kind of thing? No? Okay, so Gatorade was invented in Florida, University of Florida to be specific. Okay, in Gainesville, and they called their mascot is the Gator, right? Because it's Gators in Florida and that kind of thing. All right. And what it was designed to do was, of course, to the football team was getting dehydrated very quickly because it's hot in Florida. And they were playing football and they were getting dehydrated very quickly and they were catching cramps and all kind of stuff. And so one of the researchers there, one of the scientists, one of the doctors there, he said, oh, I could probably make something that, can help, add electrolytes and saline and all that stuff to the body so they stay hydrated. So that's what he did. He created Gatorade. He gave it to the football team. This thing is fantastic. Okay, this thing works great.
They did the marketing for him, but
They didn't even do that. Okay, so whose property is that? Is it the scientist's property or the school's property? No, it's the school's property. Why the school? He used the school equipment to make it. So it belongs to the school.
But the idea was,
Doesn't matter.
so the profit will go only to the school.
Yeah, the school has the rights to it.
But
Right.
they give.
So basically what happened is that the school sold it to Pepsi,
Okay.
okay, and Pepsi marketed and everything, but the inventor worked a deal out with Pepsi to get residuals from the sale. Because at the end of the day, although the school owns the in essence, the formula, the recipe, actually putting the recipe together, it takes the actual person that, who invented it, right? Because it could just say salt, water, flavoring. Okay, how much flavoring? How much salt? How much water? I don't know. I don't need to tell you that. These are the ingredients. Make it happen, right? And so basically they need him. So he ended up getting a deal with Gatorade with Pepsi. And I think on average, he get $1 million check a month or something like that for the rest of his life, basically. But you see how Gatorade first came out, it's just Gatorade, right? Now when you look at Gatorade, how many things do they have? They have a whole product line. They got Gatorade Gel, they got Gatorade Light, they got Gatorade Athlete, they got Gatorade Pro, they got Protein Bar, they got Gatorade everything, right? Guess who doesn't get any of that money? He doesn't. He doesn't get any of that money. Because his Gatorade formula, that's it. You don't get anything else. You don't get of the other products, right? Even though your recipe was the foundation, you don't get money from all the other stuff that we kind of spun off of it, right? It's the same thing in the workplace. You get the benefit, but you also get the negative with it. Okay, so again, if there's an employee that does something and they work for the company, many instances the company's gonna be liable too. All right, so that's why you see a lot of times companies try to cut people off. Hey, you did that, you finished, we're not messing with you. Even in the military, like, so you're retired, I'm retired, right? I get a check, I get a pension every month. But if I go to prison, that stops. You take it away. Okay? You did something so agreed that you're gonna go to prison for, we have to cut ourselves off from you because we can't be associated with you. All right, and they cut it off. I don't get my pension. I don't get any of my benefits anymore. All gone. All right, I'm in prison. What do I need them for?
Anymore or do you release?
No more gun. Done. Finished. Okay. So the organization employee relationship is critical, right? In understanding what companies, what we call exposure is, right? Exposure is the term that they use to say what legal ramifications are we going to face? What legal things do we need to worry about, right? There's exposure there, right? Such and such that did X, Y, Z. We have exposure. We need to make sure we take care of that, right? We don't want exposure. Exposure is bad. All right, any questions? All right, yeah. All right, so this is Title VII, Civil Rights Act 1964, okay? That's how I was saying. 15 or more employees applies to all institutions for the most part, public and private, as long as you have 15 more employees, okay? Labor unions with 15 or more members, and then state and local governments, all that other good stuff, right? But okay, we'll talk about affirmative action too in a minute. All right, so Civil Rights Act 1964, Title VII specifically applies to employment, okay? And so it's the core of HR, because HR is just about following the rules, right? Making sure things are run in a practical and within regulations, right? And so, like I said before, we have the Pregnancy Discrimination Act, we have the American Disabilities Act, we have the Age Discrimination Act, okay? And so each one, pregnancy, you can't, discriminate against someone because they're pregnant. You can't discriminate against someone because of their age. Over, maybe it is 40 is considered age discrimination. And it doesn't apply as much anymore because back in the day, when you got to 40, 50 years old, they thought that was old, right? Because people didn't live as long and that kind of thing. By that age, you were starting to retire and those kind of things. So if a 50-year-old or somebody that was older came into a job, interview, most instances, they wouldn't hire them, okay? Now, why would I not want to hire someone who's older?
Because of the insurance.
Insurance? What do you mean insurance? Health insurance, okay, yeah, exactly, right? They got medical issues,
Yeah.
right? You got health issues. I don't know if you got cancer. I don't know what's wrong with your liver, kidney. You old. You got some problems, I'm sure. Okay. What else?
You gotta stay at home.
You gotta stay home.
Ability to learn new things.
Ability to learn new things. Okay, right? Can't keep up with new technology and don't want to change their ways. What else?
But it depends on the position and the job description.
Okay, okay.
Maybe it's necessary to hire somebody with high experience.
Okay, and so if it's somebody with high experience, then you would hire somebody older? Would that be okay?
It depends, the old people, by default, have a higher experience.
Right, they should, right?
But there's a difference between their market and our market, the new market, you know?
Okay.
Because the market keeps changing.
Mm-hmm.
You bring like, let's say, a good salesman, that he's 60 years old.
Yeah.
The way he was selling, there's a bit different than the way we sell.
Then do something there, right? But
So his experience will expire.
yeah, but what I'm talking about is important because
It depends.
it depends, right? If I have somebody and I need, it's a senior position, right? It's a senior,
Advisor or a legal.
COO
Yeah.
position.
Yeah.
Yeah, security manager, let's say.
whatever it is, right?
Consultant position.
Yeah, whatever it is, right?
It depends.
And I'm looking for experience, right? What comes with that experience? What comes with that experience? From the company perspective, if I'm hiring someone with experience who's older, what else comes with that? What else should I be expecting?
Growth.
Oh,
Growth.
growth?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I mean, you expect growth, but like
Salary be high for.
salary.
Yeah.
Okay? So if I have somebody that has 5 years experience compared to somebody that has 25 years experience, the person with 25 years experience, they're gonna be expecting 25 years experience salary, okay? And maybe I don't wanna pay him that. Maybe I'll take the person with 5 years, pay them a whole lot less, or maybe I get 2 people with 5 years, pay them what I was gonna pay one person, and just train them. Huh?
You hire two, it will still be less.
Right, it'd still be less,
Yeah.
right? And I just train them, right? But that's discriminatory. Okay, it's against the law to do that. To discriminate someone because of their age, right? And like I said, it doesn't happen as often as it did before because now, 50 is not old. I'm 50.
No,
Yeah, I'll be 51 this year, right?
you look 24.
Well, I appreciate it. I don't feel 22, but I appreciate it.
I'm sorry, your profile on the website,
Yeah.
confused the shit out of me. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's 20 years, and
Yeah.
you work 10 years, but you only do like 30.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
didn't know, I told my friend, he worked with the army for 20 years. And he
Yeah.
said, okay, and then 10 years in,
He joined the army 10 years.
When I was 5, I joined when I was 5.
how could he?
No, this is what I'm saying, like, there's people in the workforce, that are working till they're 60, 65, right? 50 is not old anymore. 50 is still young. You got plenty of life, right? My father's 82. He's not gonna die anytime soon. Okay, so I have another 40 years probably to live.
We got a guy
And
at
work.
work that, came out of retirement, he already collecting social security, came out of retirement.
Yeah,
and
correct,
started
yeah.
working again.
Right.
Boy.
Exactly, bored, and then so a lot of people coming back to the workforce, so age discrimination doesn't apply as much. It depends really on the industry. The tech industry, for the most part, is very age. They discriminate a lot against age, and rightfully so, just because usually the older folks are not up on the technology, right? They're not really well versed on how to deal. I don't know any old people unless they are, in the public eye or, have somebody to help them who have Instagram, right? Or TikTok or something like that. They may have it, but they don't even know how to use it, right? They're not on there all the time, right? Unless you're somebody famous and that kind of thing, and you have somebody, even then you have somebody that does it for you, right? So in that industry, yeah, but maybe consulting, construction, business, where it doesn't matter, right? The president, right? President Biden is gonna be 81. right? He's old,
85 or 81?
81, I think. I think he's in his 80s either way. That's old to be the president and to have that kind of schedule, right? Like I said, my dad's 82. That guy doesn't leave his couch. He likes to watch the TV. He goes out, he relax. He don't want to work. Okay, he's just chilling. Right? Right? Man, you're 82 and you're the president. You gotta work. Okay, I'm taking naps. I'm tired. Okay, and so when you look at those things, but the experience he has warrants him. You know, people understand why he's in position because President Biden's been in the government for 40 years. Maybe even a little longer than that, 60 years. Yeah, 60 years maybe, right? Because he's 20s, yeah. Maybe 60 years. He's been in the government in some capacity. He understands the government, right? He understands what it takes. He understands vice president, you know, he understands all that stuff. So his experience is a big deal in this particular instance, all right? So you have age discrimination. You have American Disabilities Act, right? Where you cannot discriminate against a person because of disability, as long as they, aside from the disability, can still do the job. Okay, so if somebody comes in a wheelchair, or they have cerebral palsy, or they have some other physical disability, but they can still do the job mentally, cognitively, intellectually, they can still handle everything, they move around on their own, they're fine, right? You can't discriminate against them because they own a wheelchair, or maybe they're in a cane. And the thing is, like, there's a lot of things that kind of disability that people don't really realize, okay? So I had a boss, he wasn't much older than me, and his eyesight was going bad, all right? And so we used to, you know, work on a little computer on our desktop. He couldn't see. So he said, I need a big TV. I need a big monitor. So we got him one of these. We put in his office, and that was his computer screen. That's how blind he was. Just computer screen, right? And then somebody somewhere put a complaint in about it because they thought it was like unfair, ridiculous, like, oh, because he's the boss, he got this big screen TV, and he, like, I want a big screen TV, right? Whoever it is. And so did an investigation, whatever. We all knew that we got it because he can see, right? And he's the boss. So whatever, it is what it is, right? But that is something we call reasonable accommodation, right? And so when you talk about reasonable accommodation, we're saying, if I have a disability, you as the company need to do whatever you can to accommodate my disability, as long as it doesn't cause you undue excessive financial burden. Okay, undue excessive financial burden, right? And what I mean by that is that, let's just say, for instance, we have a student or we have a faculty member who's in a wheelchair, okay? And we don't have an elevator, but the classroom's upstairs. How are they gonna get upstairs? Can't, right? So the employee goes and says, hey, CEO, you need to put an elevator in there because I gotta get upstairs to my class. The CEO says, no, I'm not gonna put an elevator in there. The employee goes, no problem. I'm gonna file a grievance. He files a grievance with the EOC. Okay? You're gonna come back. The person's gonna lose. In the wheelchair, they're gonna lose. Why are they gonna lose? You want me to put an elevator in? You know how much that costs? Okay, now we have to compare it to how much the money the company actually makes.
Yeah.
Right.
If it's affordable, but then they have.
Excessive undue financial burden.
Yeah.
Right? Toyota, for them to put an elevator in here would not be excessive undue financial burden. They can afford 100 elevators. Okay? The school here cannot. Okay? So what would happen is that we're gonna accommodate you. We'll move the class downstairs and we'll move somebody else upstairs. Okay? This is why you see all around the buildings, there's the handicap signs, right? They have to be at a certain height. There's the ramps. When you go to places, the handicap ramps. When you go inside the bathroom, certain stalls, you open it, they have the handlebar. You ever seen them with the chain on the toilet? They pull to flush the toilet, all for emergencies, right? And so you have all these things they call reasonable accommodation. Because you have to be able to accommodate the person's disability, right? So for instance, I talked about my boss with the eyesight, right? That was a reasonable accommodation. He needed to do his job, but he couldn't see. And so he told his boss, like, hey, I need something, I can't see, right? In this situation, because it's the military and that kind of thing, it's a little different than how things happen, right? The boss says jump, you go get it, you bring it back, you're not asking no questions, right? But it is what it is, right? In the corporate environment, it's a little different, okay? It's not the same, but you still have reasonable accommodation, okay? If you have a disability that can't be seen, for instance, you get bad headaches, okay? And the headaches cause you to be nauseous, you throw up, you're dizzy, you can't, bright lights affect you, you can't work anymore, right? And then this happens to you maybe 2-3 times a month and you have to go home, right? Your boss starts saying, hey, this is not gonna work. Like you gotta figure this out, right? There's a reasonable accommodation for that. As long as it's annotated or documented by a licensed physician, okay? As long as I go to the doctor, get a note from the doctor, say, hey, I have headaches. My headache is considered disability. And because of this, I get nauseous, I get sick, and I'm going to require time off. I'm going to need to leave early or do something else when this happens. I give it to my boss. They got to let me go. They let me go home and they can't say nothing. Okay. That's a reasonable accommodation. These chairs that you're sitting in, right? The ergonomic chairs, right? This is all came from reasonable accommodation because someone somewhere along the line complained that the chairs weren't good for my posture. They hurt my back. They're not good chairs. And so they went through a whole lawsuit and they were like, okay, now we have ergonomics, okay? The chair has to have the curve in the back, has to have the things so you can rest your arm, right? The keyboards, right? Back in the day, well, even now, people had those little pads that they put in front of the keyboard when they're typing, right? Why is that? Anybody know?
Why did they use it?
Why do they use that little pad in front of the keyboard? It's a little foam, like sponge pad. They put it in front of the keyboard and they rest their hands on it and they type. No?
I know it, but I don't know what. Yes, matter, I think.
Carpal tunnel,
Yeah,
right? Carpal tunnel, their wrist.
yeah.
You do this long enough, it starts to bend the veins and the capillaries in your wrist, and they start to poor circulation. And you start to get tingly and numb, and it's called carpal tunnel. And so to fight that, whenever you got to your job, you get a thing to put on your keyboard to help you keep your hands straight. Okay, so that was all part of reasonable accommodation because we don't want any disabilities, right? No relation, right? Okay, what time is it?
7:35.
35. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up here. What I want you to do is to go back to week 2, check out the rest of this presentation. There's about 10 more slides, okay? Just take a read at it. And it's important just because the workplace is changing, right? And especially after COVID and how, we're doing things. People are working more from home, right? They go back to work, but it's remote work, there's telework. And in light of some of the new laws and some of the good legislation that's come out, affirmative action has been taken away, right? And so now you have to start thinking about, and affirmative action really applies to usually schools, the education system, right? And that's how a lot of people got into some of these bigger schools, right? And affirmative action it's not a law. Okay, it's not mandatory. Affirmative action is a suggestion, it's guidance, it's a plan. Has no legal ramifications unless you violate the law, right? Unless you violate the law. If you violate the law and you discriminate people based on race, gender, or mostly race, then the government will come in and make you implement an affirmative action plan. And then you have to execute it, all right? This is what happened in the school system. Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Columbia, all these big Ivy League schools. That's why it's in the university system now. They were discriminating against minorities. Okay, so then they say, look, we have to even out the playing field. In order to do that, if you have a candidate who meets the basic qualifications, right, to enter the school, and they happen to also be a minority, you have to accept them. Okay, to a certain degree, all right? Although they say they don't have quotas, they kind of do have quotas. Okay, so, but again, it's not a law, it's a suggestion, it's a plan, it's guidance until you break the law. And then once you break the law, then it becomes mandatory to implement an affirmative action, right? So affirmative action is now gone. They just took it away last week. Okay, so now there'll be no preferential treatment for minorities. And so most of the schools are still gonna keep it, right? Because if you don't, you're gonna have a reduction in basically minority presence in the schools, right? Because a lot of times, the schools don't really take into consideration your background, where you're from, the resources you had, right? Someone that grew up in the streets or in you know, not the ghetto, but in just a bad neighborhood, or didn't have a lot of money, weren't super rich, their parents were poor, maybe their parents worked 2 jobs, they were never home, and they kind of grew up on their own, right? They don't have as many resources. So they're smart, they got the good grades, but they don't have necessarily the understanding of how to navigate the system as compared to somebody who's both their parents went to college, they make a lot of money, they know a lot of people, they got good grades, they have all these extra time to do all these extra activities, and they're gonna get into the school, right? And so you want to keep schools diverse, you want to keep schools where you have representation of the community and society at large, because that really promotes good thinking, you know, kind of promotes more inclusive thoughts and processes, and just make things better when you have different perspectives from different walks of life. Okay. All right. So like I said, just check out the rest of this PowerPoint. Make sure you get all your quiz, LE in. All right. What else? I haven't graded title certification just yet, but don't worry about that. Move on. As long as it's related to HR, right? Okay, we're good, right? And understand the title justification is the title justification for your paper, for your final paper, okay? So make sure it relates to HR in some way. If it doesn't relate to HR, I will let you know, like, hey, you gotta change your topic or connect the dots for me somehow, okay? Aside from that, we're halfway through. Okay, so 4 more weeks, and then you don't have to look at me anymore. Till next class. All right.
What the other classes that you've taken? Because I just received my.
I teach a lot of stuff, so it depends on the class. It depends on the class and depends on, you know, who they want to teach the class. Usually I teach statistics. I teach HR. And you know, once in a while, depending if they need me to teach it, I'll teach corporate finance and stuff like that. Sometimes too. But normally HR and statistics.
Yeah,
And organizational development, OD.
Organization development?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Sometimes.
had this one.
Yeah. So I may teach it, I don't know, they may have somebody else to teach.
Okay.
Yeah, so no guarantees.
Are you gonna take it next?
I don't know yet. I haven't seen the schedule.
Okay.
They haven't told me anything yet, so we'll see. OD. Mhm. Yeah.
You have to take it as a case.
Yeah.
Interesting, yeah.
All right, Raina, we're out of here.
Thank you, Doctor.
I'll see you later.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, see you guys next week, okay?
But I have a question.
Yeah, I just got my list today.
Okay.
How many classes I have? I have 5 more.
5 more, you done, huh?
Five
Yes.
is easy.
Yeah? Hey, it's gonna go by fast.
Yeah, they want me to like 16 classes now.
Yeah, good.
Because, concentration on the healthcare.
Yeah. That's good, as long as it's gonna be done quick.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Of course, I'll see you guys next week, okay?
Don't be mad about what I'm doing.
What do you mean?
About the first 2 weeks. It wasn't my option. I lost my laptop.
I forgive you,
This
okay?
was the worst thing. I lost my laptop since day one, no?
I forgive you, okay?
Take this back.
Yeah, all right.